NFL Week 16 on the horizon. Fresh off of NFL Week 15, we have a couple games, a couple headlines coming off of last weekend that we're going to discuss as we break down some of our big games in NFL Week 16. There are a couple doozies on here, especially some divisional matchups that will have some key importance as we talk about some of the playoff implications. But for those of you who do not know us, we are Statletics. We love walking through some of the bigger games of each NFL week and kind of breaking those down from our perspective. We really rely onto our model projections and the analytics that go into it to kind of discern what we think is going to happen in each one of these games. So it's always a good time. We're just a couple guys who love talking ball. So if that's for you, you're in the right spot. We appreciate you guys joining us. Before we get into this next week, BJ, how we doing, man? Merry Christmas, almost.
Hey, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Best time of year. It's been slow here. It's rained for 12 days straight, I think. So I'm ready for a little Florida sunshine this weekend, which is where I'll be going for Christmas.
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
be trading places with you.
Yeah. Big weekend. So on Saturday, we have two games. The Chiefs and the Texans, the Steelers and the Ravens. So big day there. Love that. We always love more football throughout the week and then the rest of the slate as well. Not to mention the Thursday night football game as well. But we have about 6 games that we're going to touch on this show. So if there's a particular one that you want to watch, just scrub on down to it and make sure to find it. Otherwise, we're going to kick this thing off from the top with the Steelers going to Baltimore to play the Ravens. We already saw these two teams go head-to-head against each other earlier this season. The Steelers obviously got away with one. You know, they bested the Ravens and kind of showed them up. So I think the Ravens are going to be looking for revenge. The Steelers are kind of limping into this game, BJ. We saw TJ Watt get his ankle rolled up. We really don't know the status. I'm leaning more that he would be out. But again, we know TJ Watt is one of the toughest dudes in the league. So I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if he ended up suiting up on Saturday. So looking forward to that and kind of tracking that throughout the week. That's kind of a big factor for this game. You know, is there going to be somebody like TJ Watt's caliber, one of the best to ever do it at the defensive lineman position? Is he going to be able to get after Lamar? You know, that's going to be key, paramount for the Steelers defense on Saturday. So obviously that's something we'll be watching and we're going to take into consideration as we kind of discuss this game. Ravens, coming off of a big win against the Giants, as expected, nothing out of the norm there. Dude, Lamar Jackson's having a career year. He's even, I think in my opinion, he's playing better at a higher level than when he won the MVP last year and the first time he won the MVP. So good for him. I really love this team. Lamar as a passer, not even discussing his weapon, his legs as a weapon, but Lamar purely as a passer is, arguably one of the best right now. So good for him. They're really hard to stop offensively. Their defense is not up to par this year. It's not the same, They're 25th overall in median EPA per play allowed. But again, on the offensive side of the ball, they're second overall in EPA per play. So different Ravens team that we've seen in terms of profile and the way that they play, but solid unit nonetheless. Beatable on the defense side of the ball, but really, really hard to stop on the offensive side of the ball. The Steelers, we mentioned that TJ Watt's could be banged up. The status of George Pickens is also going to be really, really important heading into this game as well. Ravens are a 6.5-point home favorite, a little bit bigger of a spread than I anticipated coming into this week, BJ. I know that kind of threw you off a little bit as well. The model has this as a 6-point spread, 24-18, in fact. So really not that different. I was surprised by that, given the nature of this game. But those injuries, the way that the offense has kind of decelerated a little bit for the Steelers comes into play a little bit. We saw this offense take off with Russell Wilson, but we've seen it, slow down a little bit. So, BJ, talking about the Steelers offense, they're going to have to show up and exploit this Ravens defense. But are you concerned that they're slowing down for the wrong reasons, or do you think that's just a symptom of not having a guy like George Pickens out there and still kind of working together on that chemistry in the passing game? What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's definitely slowing down. And, with a scheme that Arthur Smith runs, it helps to have a Derrick Henry, right? And they don't have that. and the run game hasn't been explosive. And it is disappointing that it is slowing down for sure. Pickens plays a huge factor in that. This offense and this team in general is just so top heavy. As soon as one goes out, it's pretty hard to replace that. Luckily for them, the Ravens are was it 30th in the league or 31st in the league in passing yards per game allowed. So the moon balls from Russ on the play action can be pretty effective in this game. They need to make some explosive plays in that in order to win this game.
Yeah, the Baltimore front seven is really, really strong. They'll have no problem. In fact, I think they'll really create chaos in the running game where the Steelers, they love to run the football. They're going to try to impose their will in the running game.
That can work.
It might. I mean, we saw what happened last time. They just kind of like played keep away with the Ravens, and they just forced the Ravens to, they gave little time, less drives to the Ravens on the offensive side of the ball. And so it was just a ticky-tacky game that the Steelers forced out of the Ravens. So I think the Ravens are going to try and like generate more explosive plays and kind of flip that narrative and do what they do to the Steelers, what the Steelers did to them in the first matchup that they played against each other. But the Baltimore defense can certainly stop the run. First overall in rushing yards per game allowed, first overall in rushing yards per attempt allowed. The reason that their defense is giving up explosive plays is because it's in the passing game. And so this bodes well, especially if George Pickens is unavailable once again. This matchup is favorable. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing implied in the point spread and the differential in both the model and with Vegas and what they have to say. I like the Ravens here. You like the Steelers to cover. I don't have any comment on the point spread, but I like the Ravens here. You like the Ravens to win here in a close one. I kind of see that too because the way that this conference or this division is like there's never a blowout game. No matter how bad the teams may be and how bad the margin may be, it's always close. It's a rivalry game. It's going to be on an island on Saturday. Prime time game. So everybody's going to be watching, everybody's going to be juiced up and ready to go. And it's Tomlin, let's not pretend like having Tomlin on the sideline is not a huge factor for this game as well. He's going to have his guys ready. He's going to come ready to go. He's going to scheme up a good game defensively and offensively, no matter who's out there. And so I have faith in him to come out there and show up. But I think the Ravens get this one just because they're going to be more explosive on the offensive side of the ball. The one thing that the Steelers have done this well, though, is protected themselves in the passing game. They're third overall in EPA per dropback in the league up to this point in the season. So, again, some of that is due to the pressure that TJ Watt and Cam generate on the defensive line. So we'll see if that holds up on Saturday. But the Steelers are really holding their breath, hoping that TJ Watt can play. I think that's going to be paramount to Saturday's game. So, BJ, it's going to be fun. You picked your Steelers to cover, but you picked them to lose. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's Lamar Jackson is irreplaceable. You can't let him go off platform, and he can win games by himself. Same like Josh Allen, and it's really hard to beat a team twice in a year, especially a divisional game. So that's why I've got the Ravens to win this game at home.
Did you see that they let Deontay Johnson they didn't let him basically go, cut him, but they just said don't show up to practice.
Yeah, you're benched.
Yeah, just you don't even come to practice.
What a bummer.
And
must really piss people off.
I think why they're doing that, though, interestingly enough, is because if they did cut him, you know where he'd go?
He'd go back to Pittsburgh.
He'd go back to the Steelers because they are desperate for a wide receiver. He knows the scheme, and it, in fact, would help the Steelers. So, kind of smart by the Ravens, but it's insane that we have a guy like Deontay Johnson who's in a contract year, nonetheless. What is he doing? Nobody's going to want to sign him after this.
No,
it's just
no one's going to take him.
Chaos. So, nonetheless, hey, we like the Ravens to win in this game. It's going to be a close one. That's how it always is. But I like the Ravens here. Their offense is explosive. I mean, it's one of the best in the league. We mentioned it's second overall in median EPA per play. It's also fifth overall in offensive success rate per play. It's going to take advantage of this game and exploit the Steelers defense where they're kind of weak right now with some key injuries. So I like the Ravens in this one. Okay. Guys, the show is brought to you by Not Beer, American Sparkling Water. Never a bad time to have a Not Beer. You can mix it with whatever you want. You can have it outright as a sparkling water. Make sure to find the comments there. Have it shipped directly to your door, or find a store that carries it. Not Beer, American Sparkling Water. Okay, Beach. Another divisional game. Eagles travel to Washington to play the Commanders. Now, the Eagles have about wrapped up this division. They've clinched the playoffs. Is what it is. They're really only, fighting for seeding at this point. So, but the Commanders, they're still, they need to pad their win column to make sure that they're securely in place for a wild card and kind of where they're aligned in the wild card, Beach. So Commanders plus 3.5 at home as they face the Eagles. Eagles, we talked about the Steelers just a minute ago. We didn't mention the fact that they got routed by the Eagles as well. So Eagles looked really good against a solid Steelers team. Again, TJ Watt got banged up in that game. So something to consider, but nonetheless, that unit is impressive defensively speaking. So the fact that Jalen Hurts went out there and carved him up, that is worthy of a note at some degree. It's like
with a broken finger.
Broken finger.
See that?
Yes.
Broken finger on his left hand.
So pretty impressive outing by Jalen Hurts. I think he definitely silenced some folks who were talking shit about his passing game. We always knew it was there. It's just a matter of drama with this team. It feels like their ceiling is limitless. You have two receivers that are superstars. You have a wide receiver 1 and 1B, and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. You have the league's best running back right now, and Saquon Barkley, the league's best offensive line. That's undisputed. And then now you have Jalen Hurts, who's really feeling it. So it's limitless. This defense is a good squad, too. I mean, you look at what they're putting out right now. What is it? Let me find it on the screen. 8th overall, or 3rd overall in EPA per play allowed, 8th overall in EPA per play on the offense side of the ball. So top 10 in EPA per play on both sides of the ball. Again, their ceiling is limitless. What is dragging them down is the drama and Nick Sirianni. So more on that later. Commanders coming off of a close win, too close for comfort against the Saints last week. Jaden Daniels and company have kind of decelerated as well. We talk about Cliff Kingsbury and how he has a great first half of the season, but he always slides in the latter half of the season. We're seeing that same exact pattern this year. So this is going to be an important game for him to call because it's against a really good unit in the Eagles defense and a key game. This is going to be a key game. A lot of people are going to be watching. This is going to give the same type of feel as what a playoff game would have. The Washington offense is still really good, 4th overall in EPA per play, and 1st overall in offensive success rate. But it's just not what it was at the first half of the season from what it feels like. Defensively speaking, they're not that great, 20th overall in EPA per play, 19th overall in defensive success rate. So, certainly have underperformed there, but they're getting better, I think, slowly but surely. But, Beej, this game for the Commanders, I feel like it would be huge to win as a morale booster going into the playoffs. Do you think the Commanders can do it at home? What do you think?
I don't think they can do it. And the reason's pretty simple for me. I just think the Eagles are, in every facet of the game, better than this team. The Eagles' defense has been on fire recently, and they played, a couple weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, they played each other, and they didn't allow Jaden Daniels to do a whole lot, and I think it's going to be more of the same here. Regarding the drama, you said it, this team's got the best offensive line in the league, arguably number 1, best running back in the league, and the Washington's defense allows, over 130 rushing yards a game. Barkley had 146 in their last matchup. I think they're going to be able to run the ball fine. They're going to be able to do whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean,
truly, this team is incredible.
I think for the Eagles' perspective, this is going to be obviously a big game for them too, because again, to the point, they're fighting for seeding. They're currently 12-2, and if you pivot over and look at what Detroit is working with right now, I mean, Detroit's in the same boat as well, on top of all of the injuries that Detroit has faced. So if the Eagles can win out and Lions drop 1 or 2 games, the Eagles are going to be hosting. The NFC runs through Philadelphia. So that's huge, especially with the NFC division that is going to be, competitively, elevated compared to what they have been in the past few years. So getting that first seed is going to be really important. I think they're going to really come out. Obviously, they're going to try and win against a divisional rival. Okay. Like, I'm not going to say this game is, whatever, but there's still motivation for the Eagles to play everybody and to try and go out and win. And so the Eagles are going to come out motivated. I think we obviously saw their passing game is perfectly fine if they want to use it. But, to their point is like, they're only going to use it if they have to. And the only thing stopping themselves is the drama around this team. They can run the ball really well. They're going to keep running the ball really well until they're put in a position where they need to pass the ball. And so it's like, what do you do as a Commanders team? Well, you gotta take away the big plays, remove the explosive plays from the Eagles offense, and then you have a chance. And then generate some explosive plays yourself. And I mean, Jaden Daniels is throwing one of the best deep balls that we've ever seen. Terry McLaurin coming off of a 2-touchdown game. He should have had 4 touchdowns last game. Had a couple close ones if Jaden Daniels was just hitting that ball half a second quicker. But Commanders can certainly do it. And it bodes well that they're playing him at home, but it's hard for me to see a world in which the Eagles don't take advantage of this defense. I think that they're going to run the ball, they're going to pound the rock, they're going to come ready. I think everybody's getting more comfortable in this Kellen Moore offense. You and I both have a love affair with Kellen Moore, and we're starting to see why. He's putting together the pieces. He knows who can do what on this offense. And we're starting to see some of that come to fruition. So where the Eagles are progressively climbing upwards on the offensive side of the ball, the Commanders are progressively going backwards. So just with that trend alone, with what we see in the numbers here, the Eagles top 10 in EPA per play on both sides of the ball. They're just going to be the stronger team. So the Commanders are going to have to come out firing, and they're going to have to somehow limit the explosive plays if they want to win this game. But I like the Eagles in this one, fighting for a number 1 seed in the NFC to take home a dub against the Commanders. Oh, this is going to be fun. Texans go to Kansas City, play the Chiefs. The status of Patrick Mahomes is going to be paramount. Okay, so he had the ankle injury. He left last week's game against the Browns. We don't know if he's going to end up playing in this game or not. So we'll talk about this in kind of both ways. We'll assume Carson Wentz is playing, but we may, we can think about it in both lights, let's say. But Texans traveling to the Chiefs, playing in Kansas City. Both teams are having very, very weird years. I hope I make sense in saying that. And I think everybody would understand what I'm saying here. CJ Stroud is having let's call it sophomore slump. He's definitely not performing up to par. In fact, this Houston offense, 29th in offensive success rate. So third last in the league in that regard. And they're only 22nd in EPA per play. Who would have thought that a CJ Stroud-led offense with his offensive coordinator of last year, so really nothing's changed other than some injuries and the addition of Joe Mixon, but it's a slump. This team is in a slump, and CJ Stroud is underperforming. We're not going to beat around the bush. Chiefs also, compared to what they have been in the Chiefs, underperforming as well. But metrically speaking, they're still pretty solid offense. In fact, they're 9th overall in EPA per play. So they're not bad by any means. They're still really, really good. Top 10 offense, in fact. They're just not the explosive Chiefs that we know of the past few years. And I will say this. If I were to have a backup quarterback, Carson Wentz is not a bad one to have. That's a pretty good backup, I'd say. And especially with you have Andy Reid calling the shots. I mean, he's creative enough to still allow this offense to open up when they need to. Now, the Texans' defense is really good, 7th overall in EPA per play allowed. They're also 2nd overall in defensive success rate. So it's going to be tough sledding, especially if Carson Wentz is the one calling the shots. So this is going to be ugly. The model sees an 18-19 game. So really low scoring, a 1-point spread compared to a 2.5. And this does take into account the injury to Patrick Mahomes. Just wanted to note that. So if Patrick Mahomes came back, this point spread would flip probably to the opposite, or probably to another 2.5, 3 points. Excuse me. But right now, man, the Texans are just not playing well. The only thing they have going for them is a really strong defense. They just had numerous turnovers against a really good Dolphins offense last week. It's still a solid win, so it's not like morale is low by any means. But they have their Texans defense. They may be able to stop the Kansas City Chiefs, especially if Carson Wentz plays. But how confident are we in that? I'm not entirely sure. The reality is, can the Texans offense find a groove, especially on the road at really tough place to play in Kansas City against the Chiefs defense that is still 10th overall in EPA per play allowed? Are you confident that CJ Stroud can do anything at this point?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty difficult for him. Definitely playing in that environment against this good defense. It's so weird to think that all these Chiefs games are like under 40 total.
Mm-hmm.
All these games they're playing, they're winning by 1 point, 19-18. That's like the last couple weeks. Both these defenses are fantastic, and I do agree with the model about it being a low scoring game. It'll be difficult for CJ to create and make big plays. He's gonna have to rely on his weapons. I'm wondering what you think about the Chiefs' defensive line against the Texans' kind of injury prone offensive line. How do you think that matchup is going to work out?
That's a huge thing as well. You know, the Kansas City is a top 10 unit in generating pressures. They generate 9 pressures per game on average. That's best. That's good for 8th in the league. And so the Houston offensive line is a top 10 unit in defending pressures. But again, if they keep going down and keep having injuries rack up, you know, something's got to give, and it eventually will give. And so it's that. I mean, CJ Stroud often saves them as well with his legs and his pocket. CJ Stroud is not a running quarterback, but he has great pocket awareness, and he will open up some plays and extend them even within the pocket. So he is good at that, but I'm just shocked. You know, they're 17th overall in passing yards per game, only averaging 239 yards per game in the air. CJ Stroud's only averaging 6.3 passing yards per attempt. Both of those figures are significantly down from last year's production. And so as much as I would love, you know, the Texans to go in here and win, especially with Joe Mixon kind of banged up. He came back into the game after the hip drop tackle, but he's not 100%. And I can't trust this offense right now. I can't trust this Texans offense. They don't lack that spark that we saw out of them last year. You know, there's almost some there's some reluctancy in this offense. You know, the timing is off. You know, it's delayed. There's no explosive plays anymore in this offense. And so until I see that, I think I'm going to ride with the Chiefs here, even if Carson Wentz plays, because I'm confident in the Chiefs defense to take advantage of a lacking Texans offense this year and to expose this Texans defense that has been good. But at home, I think Andy Reid's going to be able to draw up call a well enough game to just make it through. Again, the model is saying they only need 19 points. So it's not going to take much. And so I like the Chiefs here. I like them to win and cover their voodoo magic. You got to ride with it until it fills out. So
bad.
It is what it is, man. They're winning. They know how to win. They have the blueprint to win, even if it is the ugliest thing you've ever seen or the luckiest thing you've ever seen. They win games.
As long as they get taken down in the end, that's all I care about.
Yeah. No big game for the Chiefs. Okay, Thursday Night Football, Broncos at Chargers. Chargers coming off of a horrible loss. They got absolutely routed by the Bucs, both offensively and defensively. They just, Bucs kind of imposed their will on both sides of the ball. So good for them. Chargers, demoralizing loss. Justin Herbert got beat to shit. I mean, he was on the ground almost every other play. So, he's coming off a little roughed up out of that game. Broncos coming off of a crazy win, really, in which we thought they were going to lose. Latter half of the game, Nick Modino has a crazy pick six on a Colts attempt at a trick play, ends up elevating the score there for the Broncos, and they end up winning that game. Chargers are 8-6, Broncos are 9-5. It's a divisional game, so lots of key pretty important considering this game plus the run out of the season matters significantly for both of these teams in terms of wild card race. And so both are playing and fighting for a wild card spot. Considering the Chiefs have already locked up this division, it doesn't really matter for divisional implications, but for wild card purposes, every game matters, especially this one. So big game for both teams. Broncos, I mean, their defense is phenomenal. I mean, if you look at what the Broncos are doing, they're second overall in EPA per play allowed. They're actually first overall in EPA per drop back. So really, really tough. Patrick Surtain is really locking down these receivers and making a hard environment to throw the football. Broncos offense is looking better. They're 23rd overall in EPA per play on the offensive side of the ball, but that number has gone from like 30th overall from the first 6 games down to 23. So certainly an improvement throughout the year nonetheless. They didn't look great. Bo Nix had multiple interceptions last week against the Colts defense. It was kind of weird to see that. Colts defense is sneaky good, but they're nothing crazy. So interesting to watch that development and see if he can bounce back in a right way, or if he kind of takes that recklessness into this game against the Chargers, because the Chargers defense, even though they got picked apart by Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, they're still pretty good. On the year total, 5th overall in EPA per play allowed. So it's not like they have a bad unit. They're also 4th overall in defensive success rate. Really good in the rushing game, especially. So it's going to be hard for the Broncos to run the football in this position. So they're really going to need Bo Nix and his arm to win this game. So, BJ, talking about the model here, 17.5 to 19.5 in favor of the Chargers. So another low-scoring game projected. The model has this as a 2-point spread in favor of the Chargers, whereas Vegas has it as a 3. You like the Chargers here on a bounce-back victory. I like the Broncos here. Now, it is at the Chargers. Do you think, tell me why you like the Chargers here. Do you think their offense can bounce back and this defense can hold down the fort against Bo Nix?
Yeah. It comes down to me. The determining factor is Herbert versus Nix. Neither team is going to be able to run the ball, and it's going to come down to what Bo and what Justin are able to do, and it's going to be so gross. Nasty, but the Chargers are a game back. They're currently holding the last wild card spot. They need this win. They lost 2 in a row now. They got to stop the slide. So they did get obliterated last week, but they know it's on the line. Got to get into the playoffs. Justin Herbert outperforms Bo Nix and leads the Chargers to victory.
Yeah, I like the Broncos here, and I picked them to win in this game just because I think that I like the offense that they're running right now compared to what the Chargers are doing. As much as I love Justin Herbert and would pick him over a lot of names that most of you probably wouldn't pick over him if I were starting up a new team, he's just not working with much. And so I think schematically speaking, it's really hard for him to succeed, especially with his wide receiver 1 being Ladd McConkey. Not a knock against Ladd. He's a phenomenal receiver. Great rookie season as well. And he will continue to have success in this offense. But we would all be lying to ourselves if we would saying like he is going to be a wide receiver 1 for a team. He will be one of the league's best wide receiver 2, but he's not a wide receiver 1. And so Justin Herbert doesn't have a guy he can trust. Quentin Johnson has shown flashes of greatness, but he can't catch the ball in important moments. So Chargers, and they're also missing Will Dissly. So huge for the run blocking game and also huge for the passing game. He was an integrated part of that passing offense, and he's going to be out. So they'll be looking to Stone Smart at the tight end position. So I like the Broncos here and the offense that they run. Both defenses are a really good unit. And it's just, to me, it's who's going to end up, finding success more on the offensive side of the ball. And to me, it's going to be Sean Payton and Bo Nix and the Broncos. The only thing that concerns me for the Broncos, if I were to make a case for the Chargers, the Chargers defensive line, they generate pressures at a really high rate. They're ninth in the league in pressures generated on the defensive side of the ball. And comparatively speaking, the Broncos offense, they're tied at 29th for pressures allowed. And so that's why Bo Nix has a lot of his rushing yards. It's because he's got to get out of the pocket and scram. So that is my area of concern. And if I were to highlight this matchup, I'd really hone in on the Chargers defensive line against the Broncos offensive line. That's going to be a huge mismatch in favor of the Chargers. So I think that's one thing they have going well. But it's going to be, can they capitalize on that pressure generated? Or is Bo Nix going to get out of the pocket and still be able to make plays with his legs? That's going to be the important thing for this game, I think, as we go. But the model has it as a 2-point game in favor of the Chargers. It's going to be ugly. I like the Broncos to win outright. You like the Chargers to win outright. It's going to be fun. Some wild card implications. So we'll be watching.
Just waiting on T. Higgins.
Yeah. Then it's
We're
game
waiting
on. Then it's game on.
He's either going there or the Patriots. He should not go to the Patriots.
Okay.
Continue.
BJ, Vikings travel to Seattle to play the Seahawks. This game is kind of gross in some way because numerous reasons, but we'll just get after it. Seahawks are coming off of a nasty loss against the Green Bay Packers. That was a primetime game, Sunday Night Football, and they got embarrassed. Geno Smith had his ankle rolled up, so he ended up coming out of the game. Sam Howell came in and looked bad, just flat out bad. So I'm hoping that Geno Smith can come back. I anticipate that they're going to just tape him up, throw some spat around his cleat, and then let him go. But in the instance that he's not, I just want to make it known here. If Sam Howell starts, I am not taking the Seahawks to win.
No, so, I completely forgot about that.
So just want to lay that out there. I don't think that this offense is capable of winning that game if Sam Howell's a quarterback. But let's operate under the assumption that Geno Smith does play. Vikings travel to Seattle to play the Seahawks. Again, Seattle's a tough place to play. It may not be as tough as it once was, as what we saw from Green Bay. They just went in shredded. This defense, although improving over time, Seattle's defense, they still have a big weakness. And we saw that. We saw Jordan Love and the Packers take advantage of that. So I think that the Vikings and the way that their offense is playing at the caliber that they're playing at is kind of licking their chops at that. But again, it's the NFL. There's no such thing as an easy win, so it's going to be close. Vegas sees that as well. The model sees that as well. Vegas has Seattle at +3 here. The model has the Vikings at -2, so only a 1-point difference out of the spread. Or Seahawks +2, I guess, to match. But nonetheless, the Vikings are also interesting here because they're playing, they're kind of playing for the 1 seed. Not really. They would have to beat out the Eagles as well. But the Vikings are 12-2. The Lions are 12-2. Right now, the Lions hold the top of the division. But again, if the Lions falter, there is a chance that the Vikings could win the division and have a higher seed than the Lions. So important rest of the season for the Vikings here. Obviously, I think they're going to want to win every game, no matter what the implications are. So unless they're just locked into a specific seed, I think every team's going to want to win. So BJ, I like the Vikings here. You like the Seahawks. We're going head to head in this particular instance. The Minnesota offense is playing at a really exceptional high level right here. If we look at it, they're 10th overall in EPA per play on the offense side of the ball. They're actually first overall in median EPA per play allowed on the defense side of the ball. Their defense fascinates me, BJ. First overall in EPA, like I mentioned, first overall in defensive success rate, but they give up so many passing yards. And so it's like, you look at the numbers and the play and they tell you kind of two different stories here. I think because they're so good at blowing plays up and playing this unique cover zero type defense that Brian Flores calls, they generate a lot of chaos on the defensive side of the ball. But they also, by doing that, by playing uber aggressively, they open up the back door for some explosive plays to be had. So it's a unique matchup because if Geno Smith plays, the Seahawks like to pass it up a rate that is typically higher than the rest of the league. Their pass rate over expectation is always higher than the median in the league. And so with a team that likes to throw the ball a lot and potentially open the door for explosive plays out of JSN and DK Metcalf, do you think, and I know you have the Seahawks here, so I'm kind of teeing off your reasoning here, but it sounds like you like the Seahawks to potentially generate some explosive plays and some man beater type passing plays against this Viking defense, and ended up capitalizing on that. Is that am I on par there?
Yeah. The Minnesota defense is it's a risky defense, and it's paid off for them throughout the whole year. But they are so aggressive that they can get beat on the back end a lot. And Seattle drops back at league highest rate. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity for Seattle to make some really big plays on offense. At the same time, there's a lot of opportunity for Minnesota to create a lot of havoc on the defensive side. But if Ryan Grubb is able to have those little safety valve 2-yard hitches, on a blitz coming in, you can get kind of a short pass around for catch, big play. That's the thing that they're missing. This thing that they did at the beginning of the year with JSN. I don't think they come back and do that again. But they've got to get someone on each level of the field for these blitzes that they're going to bring.
Yeah.
And got to get the ball out quick. But this O-line is a swinging gate. So it's going to be pretty difficult. There's probably going to be a lot of sacks in this game.
Yeah.
But
and I love the reasoning behind that. I think the Seahawks have the talent and the capability to do so. I don't have the confidence in Ryan Grubbs. He's not calling good games. And so, and granted to him, it's his first year calling plays in the NFL. He came directly out of college, out of Washington. And it's a different game. It's a different beast. And so I think that this team, as talented as they are, their talent alone can elevate them and potentially win this game against the Vikings. You have guys like JSN and DK Metcalf. Both of them are an explosive play waiting to happen, but they just have to be called in the right manner. And so how confident I am Ryan Grubb? Not much. This offense, while they do have players and dudes on the offense side of the ball, they're still 19th overall in EPA per play on the offensive side of the ball and only 16th overall in offensive success rate. That's not good for the talent that they have. And so I want to see more out of this offense, and their play calling needs to be better for me to be confident and to win this game against a Vikings team that just, on the contrary of what the Seattle team does, is like they're, I don't want to say they don't have talent. I mean, they have the best receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson and one of the best second receivers in the game and Jordan Addison, arguably the best wide receiver duo in the league. And then, KOC has revived Sam Darnold and he looks phenomenal. But on top of that, they're calling phenomenal games in terms of offensive scheme. And so with that, I just like the Vikings to go in here and take advantage of the Seattle defense has gotten better. They're ranked a lot better, statistically speaking, top 10 in EPA per play allowed, but you can beat this team. The Packers just hung 30 on this team. And so what's stopping the Vikings team, who, similar to the Packers, have a very, very strong scheme, a lot of talent around that scheme, and they've proven week in and week out to go in there and execute that scheme accordingly. I like the Vikings to go in here and make a splash. 11th overall in success rate, 10th overall in EPA per play. I mean, 260 yards per game in the air, and not to mention Aaron Jones. He's having a year as well at the running back position. So I need more out of the play calling for Seattle. It's just there's a lot of mistakes that I think are being made due to the newness of the coaching staff. And so until I see them mature a little bit, I'm not ready to take them in a big time game like this, similar to the Packers last week. So
yeah, one thing I am confident in. Did you see the adjustments that Mac McDonald made in the second half on the defensive side?
Better, yeah.
It was a night and day difference from the first half to the second half of their defense. So I am confident in him being able to make the right adjustments on the defensive side. But now let's make that switch on the offensive side too, and maybe they can put a team together.
Yeah, they need Geno to play. Just no ifs, ands, or buts. They really need Geno to play.
And they'll get destroyed with Sam.
So, all right, Beach. Hey, last one on the slate that we're going to talk about: Bucs travel to the Cowboys. Cowboys are still technically not mathematically eliminated. but they're still kind of playing just for morale at this point. Bucs, on the other hand, they're 7-7. Falcons are 7-7. Or excuse me, they're 8-6. Falcons are 7-7, and so they have to win this game and keep that 1-game lead ahead of the Falcons in order for them to win the division and take a higher seed in the playoffs. Because Falcons hold the tiebreaker over them in the head-to-head. Falcons won both games against the Bucs, so if they tie, have the same record, it'll inevitably just go to the Falcons. So big game for the Bucs here for the rest of the season. Really, they just have to win out. Barring anything crazy from the Falcons, which also wouldn't be anything unexpected. But this is going to be highly watched game, I think. But the Bucs, phenomenal game last week against the Chargers. They took advantage of a good defense. That was impressive in its own right. But their defense also held up against Justin Herbert and company. So also impressive. This defense is getting better and better and better. And so we look at the Bucs defense, 16th overall in EPA per play allowed now, whereas they were like a bottom 5 team in the league, defensively speaking. And then, of course, Baker Mayfield having a career year yet once again, 5th overall in EPA per play on the offensive side of the ball. Cowboys, coming off of another win. They won 3 of their last 4, so morale is high for them as well. They're going to take it to them. And it's at Jerry World, so home field advantage for the Cowboys. But this game's going to be fun, I think. Spirits are going to be high, even if the Cowboys technically don't have a whole lot to play for. It's still fun to play party pooper if you're the other team. So I think they'll definitely be looking to do that. But, man, this Bucs offense is going to be hard for this Cowboys defense to stop. 5th overall on EPA per play, like I just mentioned, 4th overall in offensive success rate. Baker Mayfield averaging 260 yards per game and 7.4 passing yards per attempt. Absolutely slicing and dicing. The one thing that they do well is they also limit pressures on Baker Mayfield. So Tristan Wirfs and company do a good job of that. However, Dallas defense and Micah Parsons, obviously, good at generating pressures against the offense. They're 6th overall in the league. They average nearly 10 pressures per game on the defense side of the ball. So I think that's a matchup that I'm going to be watching is can they generate pressure against Baker Mayfield? Not to mention, can Cooper Rush find success against this Bucs defense? Now, generally, this Bucs defense is very beatable. They still very well might be, but they look like a better version of themselves, BJ. So you like the Bucs to win here. I like the Bucs to win here, but I can certainly make a case for the Cowboys. For Cooper Rush and company, do you expect them to have a big game, or are you confident in the progress or how much this Bucs defense has progressed that they can kind of shut them down and make a statement?
When you say I'm confident about Cooper Rush and company, do you mean the passing game? Is that what you mean? Or do you mean the offense in general? Because I do think that it's going to be difficult for Dallas to run the ball, even though they've been running the ball a lot better recently. Tampa Bay's been pretty good against the run, stopping the run. But they're beatable on the back end, and we've seen Cooper Rush throw it 55 times in a game before. So Baker's that dude. He will get his like always. And I think that stats might look okay for the Cowboys coming from behind. But I think that the Bucs are going to control this game.
Yeah. So to counter that, to make a bull case for the Bucs, the reason that I'm nervous, even though I have the Bucs to win, the reason that I'm nervous for him is, to your point, Cooper Rush has been playing really well for a backup.
He's been fine.
So when you look at this Tampa Bay defense, while they have improved, that improvement has predominantly been against the rushing game. So they only give up about 109 yards per game and 4.41 yards per carry. That's good for 11th best in the league and 19th best in the league. But you pivot over to their raw numbers in terms of the passing game. They give up nearly 270 yards in the air and 6.77 passing yards per attempt. The 270 yards per game in the air is good for 29th in the league. So you can still kind of expose them in the air if you have the weapons. And of course, CeeDee Lamb is a weapon. Cavante Turpin is now a weapon. Jalen Tolbert is now catching touchdown passes. Jonathan Mingo, I don't know. That guy sucks. Waste of a 4th-round pick. But Ferguson, he's a weapon. So I think with how well the Cooper Rush has played, relatively speaking, as a backup, I don't want to say he's like balling out by any means, but for a backup, he's played well. No ifs, ands, or buts. I think they can actually expose this Tampa Bay passing defense a little bit, especially at home in Jerry World, and kind of put the pressure on the Bucs here. So I really like that. And of course, it'll be up for the Dallas defense to try and stop a Baker Mayfield offense that is lights out this year.
Yeah.
A top 5 unit statistically speaking. So, I mean, Mike Evans is fully back too. He had a fantastic game. First ballot Hall of Famer at this point. I mean, I think it's just, his case has been made. So I do like the Cowboys to keep it close. I think they can put the pressure on, especially at home. But I like the Bucs to win in a must-win game so they can keep atop of the division against the Falcons. So give me Baker. Give me Baker all day. That wraps it up for NFL Week 16. We will be back here for Week 17 and Week 18 as well. And then, of course, we're going to get into the fun stuff, the playoffs. So don't miss out. Make sure to follow our page. We appreciate you guys being here, and we will talk to you guys next week.